Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. We're starting here with Death Stranding 3. This is coming from Genki Japan, who we're going to source multiple times across this video today. He says Hideo Kojima says he's already written the concept for Death Stranding 3, but hopes someone else will make it for him. I'm not planning to do that, Death Stranding 3, at the moment, because the ending of Death Stranding 2 was my finale of 1 and 2, but I already wrote the concept of Death Stranding 3, so I have that in data. I hope that someone will create it for me. That's exactly what Kojima had to say, and it would certainly be interesting if we do end up getting a Death Stranding 3, even more so if it's not made by Hideo Kojima. I'm not sure how people would take to that, but he is saying that he already has it kind of laid out. If that's something that I guess maybe Sony or his team or maybe even another development team, maybe he would even be willing to license it out under the right circumstances. If that's something that they would want to do, you know, he even says that he's hoping somebody will create it for him. Will be very interesting. I would definitely play a Death Stranding 3. I absolutely loved Death Stranding 1 and 2, so it would be really cool to see them continue it. But we're going to move on to the next topic here, which talks about Lost Soul Aside. And this is again coming from Genki Japan. He put out a post. He says PlayStation released a Lost Soul Aside behind the scenes video called A Hero's Journey, telling the story of how the game came to be. It began in 2014 as a solo project by Yang Bing. It released its first trailer in 2016, received a lot of emails after the trailer, including one from PlayStation. He responded to PlayStation straight away and began the partnership. It became part of the China Hero project. The project became too much to do alone, so it grew into a team. Biggest feature is the smooth and exhilarating combat. It's a hack and slash action game, 4 main weapons to change and link into combos. The story revolves around the 2 characters, Kaiser and Arena. The game represents the spirit of PlayStation's China Hero project. Yang Bing and his team were able to persist until the end to complete the game, and it's finally releasing on August 29th, 2025. So just wanted to highlight this because I feel like Lost Soul Aside is a very unique game. Again, Sony is publishing this title, and it's going to be a day one launch on console and PC. And it seems like, yeah, man, it's poised to do, I would say, relatively well. I think to a small degree, it's going a bit under the radar. But as we are getting closer to launch, I'm seeing more and more people wake up to this title and express excitement for it. And so, yeah, I am rooting for this game. I mean, considering it started out as a solo project all the way back in 2014, the developer clearly poured his heart and soul into it. And yeah, I'm rooting for it, man. So will be interesting to see how it does. But continuing with Lost Soul Aside, if you are somebody who is planning to play this game and you're a trophy hunter, it seems like the platinum for this game is not necessarily going to be that easy. This is being reported by Push Square. They say the trophy list for Lost Soul Aside has hit Sony servers, and while it harbors a few surprises about the title, it doesn't look like a walk in the park. You'll earn the majority of your trophies for simply working your way through the story. You'll also need to finish the campaign on Nightmare difficulty to earn a particularly tricky gold trophy. And that's not all. There are gongs for defeating some of the bosses on Nightmare difficulty without using any items. And you'll also need to finish all boss run challenges on hard. In addition to all of that, you'll need to find all of the collectibles and unlock every item in the game. Depending on how difficult they are to track down, this could be tricky as well. So yeah, if you are looking to achieve the platinum for Lost Soul Aside, it seems like it's going to be quite the task and will not be an easy feat. So let me know if that's something you're going to be striving for. Moving on from that though, we have an update coming from Hermen Hulst as well as other PlayStation Studios leaders about the current state of PlayStation Studios and their strategy. So again, I'm going to be referring to Genki Japan, who has done a great job kind of posting about this. So we're starting with Hermen Hulst. Hermen Hulst says the number of live service releases is not so important and that PlayStation have learned from the failure of Concord. Quote, I don't want teams to always play it safe, but I would like for us, when we fail, to fail early and cheaply. The number of live service releases is not so important. What is important to me is having a diverse set of player experiences and a set of communities. We have since put in place much more rigorous and more frequent testing in very many different ways. The advantage of every failure is that people now understand how necessary that oversight is. We take a very intentional approach to IP creation, understanding how a new concept can turn into an iconic franchise for PlayStation that can then again become a franchise for people beyond gaming. End quote. So again, that was Herman Hulst and what he said in a Financial Times article that was released just 2 days ago. And the one thing I do want to point out here, because he's not saying anything too surprising, but you can see how there's been a significant, almost like 180-degree shift compared to like 3, 4, or 5 years ago, where when Jim Ryan and Herman Hulst were doing these interviews, they were talking about how they're all in on live service with 12 to 13 games in development. And now we're seeing the opposite approach, where Herman is expressing that actually it's not the quantity of live service games that matters. And so they seem to have, I guess, refined it, and they're really focused on the kind of quality. But there's also this just general message that you can kind of take away from this, where it seems like they're trying to communicate that they're not doing nearly as much with live service as maybe you would expect. There's been this kind of narrative that Sony is just, 100% focused on live service and not single player. And to be fair, their messaging has not really helped with that image. So it seems like they're trying to maybe correct that a little bit here. But we didn't just hear from Herman Hulst. We also have an interesting quote here from Team Asobi. So again, Genki Japan reports Astrobot creative director Nicolas Doucet says that they will try to keep the balance between Team Asobi's distinct creative identity and being aligned with Sony's wider ambitions. Quote, if the creative side started feeling ostracized or penalized, between us, we'd have that conversation. That would definitely come to a boil. End quote. So also find this interesting. This was the last line in the article. It kind of represents, one of Sony's most important studio heads, making it clear that Sony's not just going to completely take over and tell them exactly how to run everything and how to do everything. That if there was ever a time where they felt like they're being forced and they're, forced in a direction they don't want to go in, they have no problem talking to Sony and, figuring that out, which I would say is good news overall. But finally, we have one more here. It says here, Ghost of Yotei creative director says that there were no boundaries from Sony on how they developed the sequel, but there are warnings that were given about other PlayStation studios and what they were making. Jason Connell says, quote, we're heading towards a giant landmine, like there's another studio making exactly the same game. That's good information, end quote. So we have another quote from a studio head here where he's basically just saying that Sony doesn't necessarily dictate how they're going to make their sequels or what they're going to make, but Sony will step in and let them know, like, hey, this game you're making and this idea you're pitching, we have another studio that's already doing that pretty much to a T, right? Yeah, it makes complete sense that Sony's going to inform their studios of that and not set them up for failure like that. But one other thing that this article highlights that I want to leave you with before we move on to the next topic is how Herman Hulst also expresses how going forward, they really want the studio heads of their internal PlayStation studios to really start collaborating with one another and learning from one another. This is something we've already seen, but it seems like they're emphasizing it a lot more and placing much more importance on that. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts about everything we just went over. We're going to move on and talk about a couple of Microsoft related topics that pertain to PlayStation. The first is Forza Horizon 6. We have a report from Push Square, and it says, following speculation of a Japan-set Forza Horizon 6 releasing next year, a new report suggests that Microsoft plans to officially announce the game and the rumored location next month. According to Windows Central and very reliable leaker Nate the Hate, the sixth entry will be revealed at this year's Tokyo Game Show. Windows Central went first, claiming that it's seen official, widely circulated documents strongly suggesting that Forza Horizon 6 is actually planned to be announced during 2025's TGS. Then Nate the Hate followed it up on Reddit, saying that the plan is to announce it this year, with TGS being the venue of intent because the game is set in Japan. And so Yeah, it seems pretty clear by this point that we're going to get that Forza Horizon 6 reveal. I think it does make sense if it's set in Japan to have a big surprise reveal at Tokyo Game Show. And the big question is, will this be a day one launch on PS5? Well, I think it's pretty obvious that it will. And the reason for that is because Forza Horizon 5 did incredible. Gears of War Reloaded, again, being reported by Push Square. It may be awkward coming from a PlayStation fan site, but we reckon we're within our rights to call out Microsoft's approach to physical game releases. On the PS5, both Indiana Jones and the Great Circle and Doom the Dark Ages shipped with just a few megabytes of data on their discs, making them game key discs, to coin a phrase from Nintendo. There was concern with Gears of War Reloaded that it may follow the same path, especially after fans noticed a warning on the European box art indicating that a download would be required to play the game. However, conspicuously, this message does not appear to be included on the North American version. Does It Play, the website dedicated to ensuring physical software can be enjoyed offline, has since got word from a trusted source that the European version of the game includes the full single-player campaign on the disc. It seems you may need to download everything else though, but seeing as that includes the online multiplayer component, it's a much more forgivable scenario. So I wanted to give you guys this update because I know a lot of people who are interested in Gears of War Reloaded on PS5 want to buy it physically, and it's nice that Microsoft is doing a physical release. But of course, people want to know if it's actually going to be on the disc, and it seems like the most important part for, the aspect you would be playing offline, that being the offline single player, is on the disc. But if you want to play the multiplayer, it seems like that is going to require an update. So yeah, not nearly as bad as what we saw previously with games like Doom. Moving on from that though, we have an update for Stalker 2 being reported by PlayStation Lifestyle. It says developer GSC Game World revealed its latest game, Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl, is finally coming to PS5. Stalker 2 will release on PS5 on November 20th of this year, exactly a month after its initial release on Xbox and PC. PS5 Pro players get to enjoy a console-specific enhancement that improves visuals in various ways. So they did release a trailer kind of outlining this, but here are the enhancements. Improved shadow quality and resolution, enhanced global illumination, higher quality reflections, improved volumetric fog, and enhanced volumetric cloud rendering. This is all PS5 Pro enhancements, but obviously, if you're not on the Pro, they're going to be taking advantage of the haptic feedback, the triggers, gyro aiming, and the Tempest 3D audio. So, they're going above and beyond to make it clear that they've optimized this game to the nth degree for PS5. So let me know if it's a title you're planning on playing. But moving on to the final topic of the video, we're talking about Call of Duty Black Ops 7 and how it seems to be having a tougher time on the pre-order charts than previous entries. Once again, coming from Push Square, it says Black Ops 7 is now available for pre-order ahead of its November 14th release date, which means you'd expect it to be at the top of the PlayStation sales charts, right? Wrong. While it's certainly not doing terribly by any stretch of the imagination, its Vault Edition, which includes early access to the game's open beta starting October 2nd, is currently 6th on the US pre-order charts, behind various permutations of NBA 2K26, EA Sports FC 26, Battlefield 6, and even Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. Perhaps it's expected to see games like MGS and NBA above it because they're coming out soon, but the cheaper cross-gen bundle is also being beaten by various versions of Borderlands 4, Gears of War Reloaded, and Ghost of Yotei. It's a similar story in the UK. According to Charlie Intel, this is one of the first Call of Duty games not to top the PlayStation Store pre-order charts immediately after its announcement. It was claimed recently that Activision felt Call of Duty was too big to fail. While we still fully expect the game to do exceptionally well, we reckon it's inevitable that Battlefield 6 is going to steal some players away this year. So I just thought this was worth, highlighting because, yeah, even I noticed this, right? I don't think Black Ops 7 is going to fail. I think nobody's expecting that. But it really does seem like this is the first time in maybe a very, very long time, maybe since like Infinite Warfare, where Battlefield is maybe putting a serious dent into Call of Duty, and the hype just doesn't seem to be there. It is worth noting, however, the bigger event for Call of Duty Black Ops 7, where they reveal multiplayer and zombies, arguably the most important aspects of this game, isn't happening until next month. So, this could just be people waiting to see more. But yeah, figured I would give you guys that update, guys. That's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.